Back here on IU Sports Sunday, sitting across from me is Ben Howler. I'm Nick Rodecap. We thank you for joining us. Week 52 of the year begins today and ends before next Sunday, but that's all I know about that, which means it's bowl season, and we were just talking about it during the break. I wanted to quickly touch on this. The bowl games this year have been electric. Indiana football not part of that because they were busy in the playoff. A little preoccupied, you might say. But yesterday, the Big Ten actually having some success this bowl season. And one of those teams that won was Nebraska, winning the Pinstripe Bowl, something that Indiana may have done in 2015 had Griffin Oaks not questionably missed a field goal against Duke. But the kick was good, and we're not gonna talk about that anymore because it makes me sad. The one thing, though, that I was really kind of interested in, and Ben, I wanted to know your thoughts on this just quickly. Cam Ward sitting out the second half after setting the single-season passing touchdown record. Miami goes on to lose that game to Iowa State by 1 point. That was a slugfest. It was like 31-28, maybe 28-28 at half. Ward sits out the second half. Miami's passing offense basically dies in the water. They had like 6 total passing yards in the second half. Ward sits out. You thought maybe he'd come in for the final drive when Miami needed a touchdown to win, but he didn't. I mean, it's a bowl game, but is that anything?
The bowl game in college football has totally lost all of its meaning. I mean, all of it. The only meaning it has left, I guess, is for some of these group of 5 teams that are never going to play in a game. We're never going to play in a game bigger than this. But I don't know, especially with a 12-team playoff now, and every team has a chance to make the playoffs, and it just feels like these bowl games are just a bunch of NIT brackets in a college basketball sense. Nobody plays in them. The guys who do play, some of these are so just going in it, just going through the motions and giving 50% effort out there. The off the field stuff in all these bowl games is fun. The Pop-Tart Bowl was awesome. I think we saw some resurrections from the strawberry Pop-Tart. I think they decided to the cinnamon roll Pop-Tart.
I think it was the cinnamon Pop-Tart.
Winning Pop-Tart?
Yeah, that Rocco Becht decided to put in the toaster.
All that stuff's fun. I mean, it's all great fun. I mean, I say this not like, I don't know. I didn't grow up the diehard college football fan that a lot of people did. So seeing bowl game never meant anything to me. It just didn't. Knowing that you don't have any chance to play for a national championship, I mean, it definitely used to mean more than it does now to me. But I think now everyone's starting to sense that there's just not much on the line in these games. It doesn't feel like a lot of people care.
That's fair. I do think with all the opt-outs, the NCAA is going to have to fix the calendar because the portal overlapping with bowl season and the playoff, it's just ugh.
The portal definitely needs to. The first thing needs to be fixed, but the bowl games just get so weird because you have to make these individual bowl games for it to be worthwhile. You have to make it these huge events that get their own TV deals and get their own hype and get their own media pre game just kind of hype for a whole week. It seems like they have it. But I don't know what the solution is. It's just been one of the issues with college football for a while.
It's very, very strange. I will say that the Pop-Tart Bowl is awesome.
It is awesome.
It's a masterclass in marketing. How about USC beating Texas A&M? A&M, a team that was 1 game away from the SEC championship. USC, by all accounts, had a down year. They beat A&M. I know, opt-outs, guys in the portal, things like that. But I haven't heard Kirk Herbstreit say anything about how A&M didn't deserve to be in the Las Vegas Bowl. By the way, has anybody ever burned their goodwill with a fan base faster than Kirk Herbstreit? Because, wow. I mean, he went from America's color commentator to the most hated man north of the Mason-Dixon in about 2 weeks. It's been crazy to watch. Just crazy.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun for Big Ten fans to sit there and be able to say all that, and they should use it. It's just tough. Texas A&M especially had a lot of opt-outs.
Yeah, they did.
The Kirk thing was weird because he always felt like such a big Big Ten guy over anything.
Well, he
else.
played at Ohio
Played
State.
at Ohio State for a while. At the beginning of his career, it was like, this dude is the biggest Ohio State homer ever. And then I think he got word of that and got paranoid, and then became like one of the big, like, whatever the opposite of a homer is for Ohio State. Felt like one of the biggest Ohio State haters forever. I think he's still trying to figure out in year 50 of doing this job exactly who he wants to side with.
I think ESPN's figured it out for him. Yeah, it's just,
that's probably the more realistic case. Is he might be being told.
Yeah, man. Kirk Herbstreit, people. I think he's kind of like hiding behind his dogs, and using them as a shield to avoid criticism. Because I don't know. There's a lot that I could say about the way Kirk Herbstreit has handled things. I'm not going to say it, but I think the popular opinion is that he burned through his goodwill pretty fast. Speaking of goodwill, a lot of goodwill had been built up for Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and the Colorado Buffaloes when they went into the Alamo Bowl. And BYU saw that. They kind of said throughout the week before the game that they didn't like that all everybody was talking about was Colorado. So they completely dominated the Buffs last night in San Antonio, 36-14. Whew. Yeah, that'll play. Once again, lending credence to my belief that Ashton Genty got absolutely robbed of the Heisman. Because, just BYU. Belt to backside, shall we say, for 4 quarters in that one.
Yeah, Colorado had the 2 best players too. Everyone said Colorado has 2 Heisman candidates throughout the whole season, and
no,
BYU I think was better than a lot of people give him credit for. They had a couple of bad weeks though.
Yeah, they picked a really bad time to lose their 2 games that they lost. Because that's the thing, like they were 10-2, and they had a head-to-head win over an at-large playoff team, and they didn't even get a look. It was because they lost to Arizona State. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Shedeur Sanders in that game, efficient maybe, 16-23, 208, 2 touchdowns, but a pair of picks, a quarterback rating of under 20, and he took like 1 billion sacks.
Yeah.
Not all of which are on him, because you have coverage sacks, you have sacks where your offensive line just collapses. But Shedeur Sanders did not look good. Travis Hunter, 4 receptions, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Okay, fine. But if you're a Heisman winner, you'd think that you'd be able to elevate your team a little bit more, especially if you play on both sides of the ball. That's not what happened. Not what happened at all. Now, Jake Retzlaff wasn't great, but BYU rushed for 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. So they made the media eat their words when it came to propping up Colorado like crazy, which I think was pretty cool to see. As someone who enjoys hate watching Colorado, I had quite a successful night last night. But a lot has been going on with Indiana football as well, even though obviously their on-the-field season is over. This is perhaps the most important time of the year for them as it relates to next season. We saw them get Fernando Mendoza from Cal, the quarterback, who was probably part of the most fun 6-6 team I've seen in a little bit in Cal. But Fernando Mendoza will, in all likelihood, be the starter for Indiana next season, which is good. I like what I see out of him. I think he's going to bring a new dimension to this Indiana offense that Curtis Rourke couldn't bring, and that's the mobility with his legs. Curtis Rourke playing with a repaired ACL. He's not going to be able to run that much. But Rourke gone, Mendoza coming in. I like that. What I don't like, though, is what Donovan McCulley said. McCulley, of course, was Indiana's wide receiver 1 in 2023. But he transferred out in the middle of this past season and went to Michigan. He committed to Michigan, and he said, I wanted to be part, I'm paraphrasing, I wanted to be part of a winner, and I wanted to be part of something special. 2 descriptors that, oddly enough, sound like Indiana football rather than Michigan right now.
Yeah, do you think, okay, I need to see the context of the quote, because that just sounds like coach speak to me. That's what everyone says when they're joining a new school. But yeah, it is ironic. He it was the relationship between him and Cignetti was so weird from the start. I remember off-season media availability, and all the way going back to the spring when I remember we showed up one day, and just like right in front of us, he was just getting chewed out by Curt Cignetti. It seemed like they never had a good relationship. Obviously, there's nothing within McCauley's talent to not like, but I think the attitude Cignetti just really didn't want to put up with.
Yeah, you think back to, was it FIU? It was early in the season. I remember somebody asked about the wide receiver depth chart and just the depth chart in general. Indiana didn't publish a depth chart this season. So Cignetti said, well, whoever works the hardest in practice, whoever puts in the most effort is going to have a chance to play. Donovan McCulley, during his time in Indiana, under Curt Cignetti, he caught, 2 passes?
Something like that.
One against FIU, and he caught a touchdown against Charlotte or Maryland. I think it was Maryland, because after the Maryland game was when he left. And it just seemed like, you were right, they never saw eye to eye. And as far as depth is concerned, Indiana didn't really need him this year. And I know that sounds kind of bad because, McCulley was someone who did a little bit of everything under Tom Allen, played quarterback. He was recruited as a quarterback and ended up as a third-team All-Big Ten wide receiver. But he just didn't mesh with didn't mesh with Curt Cignetti at all. And then for him to go to Michigan, a team that went 7-5, and had it not been for their win over Ohio State, would have no leg to stand on this season. For him to go there and say, I want to be part of something special. He could have just said, yeah, I didn't want to work for playing time in Indiana. Because that's what I really think it was. I really do think that it was more Donovan McCulley not wanting to try to go through adversity under Curt Cignetti, which, if he was getting chewed out in front of the media, I'm sure that doesn't feel good. But hey, nobody ever said college football was easy. Mm-hmm. But it's just so odd because I feel like nobody's going to believe that, right? Nobody's going to believe that, oh, yeah, the reason I actually left was because I wanted to be part of a winner. When Indiana just won 11 games for the first time ever. And you could be a part of that in 2025. But, okay, sure.
Yeah, these are just the things that all these transfers are going to say nowadays. And with the portal getting as crazy as it is, I just don't think you could take the word for every single player. They're all going to say something along those lines instead of what they really mean, and just they think it can be easier to get playing time.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's 90% of the reason guys transfer.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're following their coach, but most of the time it's guys who you've never heard of going somewhere trying to get on the field.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the reality of college football these days. I don't know if it's fortunate. I feel like something's going to change in the future because it has to. We've heard the term Wild West thrown around a lot. Speaking of the Wild West, Indiana men's basketball in non-conference games. We'll preview Winthrop a little bit more after this. You're listening to IU Sports Sunday. Well, on the topic of Reds baseball, my co-host Ben Howler informed me that the Cincinnati Reds got Jose Trevino from the Yankees. And I got to say, the rest of the National League Central. Right? Yeah. Hold on now, because Brady Singer and Jose Trevino, they're going to lead the Reds to their first World Series since, don't tell me, the 90s?
Correct.
Yeah.
1990.
1990. Wow. Whew. Yeah. Yeah, that's the needle.
Which is just 5 years before they won their most recent playoff series.
Oh, wow. That's painful. That's painful, man. I don't think we're here to talk Major League Baseball, although that would be fun.
It will be fun, but it is December 29th.
Complaining about the futility of our collective NL Central teams. Yeah, shout out to the Cubs. Big market teams spending small market money. Woohoo! But at least we got Kyle Tucker. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to move the needle. Sure. Okay. But baseball season's not here quite yet. We've got some basketball to play first. And, we talked about Indiana men's basketball playing Winthrop a little bit at the top of the show. I want to think big picture here. Because, you got 31 games over the course of the regular season. It's sometimes easy to kind of get wrapped up and, not looking at things in context. But you look at where Indiana goes from here. Right now, they sit 55th in KenPom. Winthrop is 184th. Goodness gracious. As far as the net rankings go, both of these metrics obviously playing big into the NCAA tournament selection process. Indiana is 67th in the net. Winthrop is 194th. Which, again, you look at them, they're scoring 86 points per game. How are they 194th? Look at how they've inflated those averages. They've played some really bad teams, and they've scored 100, 105 points against those bad teams, but they're still really bad teams. Their head coach, Mark Prosser, he was an assistant under Pat Kelsey, who is now at Louisville. Mm-hmm. He's got some experience. He's had some success at Winthrop as an assistant. Still trying to figure out as a head coach, though. They've hovered around 500 the last 2 years, which in their conference is not going to cut it for them.
Yeah, they're an interesting team and an interesting program. Obviously, Pat Kelsey had a lot of success there before leaving for College of Charleston. Mark Prosser is the son of legendary head coach Skip Prosser, who was the head coach at Chris Paul and Tim Duncan at Wake Forest. But they're a team that they've just struggled defensively this year, even against some of those bad teams we're talking about. The 82 points, yeah, you're right. I mean, they come against first game of the year at 82 against Little Rock, 86 later against William and Mary. These are all quad 4 opponents. 87 against Georgia Southern, another quad 4 game. 103 against D2 Bob Jones. 102 against quad 4 Mercer. They have the ability to score, and sometimes that can translate, especially if a team, can get into a lull and get a little lazy, like maybe Indiana will, just coming off of this break. This long break from the holiday break. And the defense, though, is, to me, I just don't see how it stops Indiana, really. Even without the three-point shooting we complained about so much. This is an Indiana team that especially they're going to be the bigger team in this one, so if they just pound it down low, they shouldn't have an issue. But we've said that a lot, these types of games.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. The size matchup, I will say, does stand out to me because, like you said, Winthrop doesn't have a 7-footer like Umar Ballo for Indiana. So that's going to be intriguing to see how Winthrop handles that. I'd expect that they're going to chuck up a bunch of threes and maybe they get hot because sometimes we see, a team get hot at Assembly Hall. It just kind of happens like that. You'll have some guy who's shooting like 25% and he'll make like 3 threes in a row or something. It's very odd. Very odd. But yeah, Winthrop, you look at their size, tallest guard, 6'4", which is okay, whatever. But the tallest guy on their roster, I think, it's a tie actually between Logan Duncombe and Ty Hamilton, both of whom are 6'10". Mm-hmm. So, and neither of those guys, Hamilton or Duncombe, are good scorers. I think Duncombe's averaging like 2 points per game. He doesn't play that much. And Ty Hamilton, similarly, I don't think. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
I have it right now. See if you can guess it.
Hamilton averaging for Winthrop, I'm going to say 3 points a game.
3.2.
Hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Call me Butter because I'm on a roll. Yeah.
Is that a Christmas pun?
Maybe. I don't know. I think I stole it from a college bowling team back in those days.
Wow.
Was it Lindsey Wilson University, I think? See if you can find them on a map.
Lindsey Wilson. I hear college bowling teams have the best one-liners.
There are some characters that you're going to find on any college bowling team. But as far as Winthrop goes, I don't know if they're a bowling powerhouse. Their biggest scoring threats, Kelton Talford, not exactly a household name. He's averaging what? Off the top of my head, I'm going to say 14 a game. Close, thereabouts. They don't really have many three-point shooters. Just an unremarkable team in all aspects.
Yeah, well, they're one of the so you mentioned it. So many of the teams that come in here and put up a fight against Indiana, for one reason or another, is because they're so good at, or they get really hot, and that's a lot of things. Some of these mid-major teams, what they do have is really good shooters who maybe undersized, maybe aren't as athletic, but also they're still Division I teams, and Indiana's been bad at closing out and guarding the three-point line early. And when you don't guard it early, you let teams get hot, and that's how they make some of those tough shots. Nobody came into Indiana It came into Bloomington and threw up an acrobatic three, the first three of the game. That was their first made three of the game. You know, you make a couple at first, and then they get the hot hand, and that's what happens. The thing is, Winthrop doesn't have those guys to get hot early, really. We'll see how that plays out, though. I might be eating my words. By the way, I do want to add, I looked up Winthrop bowling, and the only thing that came up was Chet Bowling, a member of the 2025 baseball roster at Winthrop.
Man, Winthrop's got to get on that. They got to add a bowling team. But, no, it's, yeah, they just don't have the guys. They don't have dudes. They've got some guys. They don't have dudes.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, no dudes. No dudes for Winthrop. I will say they've had, 15 different guys touch the floor this season, which Indiana has not.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
And that's not always a good thing, though.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
you could tell it. There's just nobody on the bench for this team.
Yeah, it's one thing to have guys who have played minutes. It's another one to have depth.
Yeah.
And Indiana has a little bit of depth. I will say, though, Ja'Kai Newton being injured for the 17,000th time does not help.
No.
And Gabe Cupps being injured, both of them out indefinitely. Cupps out for the rest of the season, for sure. That doesn't help you. Because having those guys to come off the bench is good. And if you're going to have, this is apparently the new thing for Indiana basketball now, which is just to have a guy foul twice in 30 seconds. It's happened now in both of their last two games. Galloway, I believe it was Galloway against Chattanooga, and Mbako against Nebraska. That was so weird.
Yeah.
So weird. I just remember, first of all, Pinnacle Bank Arena, great atmosphere. It's basically a giant concrete donut, but it gets loud. I enjoyed it. But you just have it's just so odd. You foul twice in 30 seconds, and you got to go to the bench for the entire first half. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why? It's weird. There's a lot of weird things happen at Assembly Hall when Indiana plays non-conference opponents. But weird things don't happen as long as you listen to IU Sports Sunday. Huh? We'll talk more after this. Back here on IU Sports Sunday, he's Ben Haller. I'm Nick Rodocap. The sun is rising. It's still cloudy, but that's okay. Because if it's anything, it's a good omen as far as raining three-pointers is going to go at Assembly Hall in just a few hours. And Ben, we will both be there. We will probably be, I don't know, two of maybe 4 or 5 members of the student media contingent at Assembly Hall for the final game of 2024. I wonder if they'll have the Colts game on the Jumbotron before tip.
I'm a Bengals fan. To me, it's the Giants game.
Oh, true. You need the G-men to somehow win. Then again, against Joe Flacco,
it's true.
Anything's possible, and weird things happen in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Most of them not good. But hey, they happen.
That is true.
They happen. But we were just talking about Winthrop's Kelton Talford, who is their leading scorer, a 6'7" senior forward out of Great Falls, South Carolina. If you can find that on a map, I will give you $20.
Sounds like a fun place, though.
Yeah, great. It sounds great. Yeah. Great Falls. But Kelton Talford, if you are not deceiving me here, Kelton Talford, Winthrop's leading scorer. He is their leading scorer. Holy cow. He averages 15 a game. He has not attempted a three-point field goal all season.
Well, he has attempted one, according to my numbers, and he's 0 for 1. Oh. I'm sure that was some heave at the end of a shot clock or regular clock.
It's not in their game notes.
Really?
Yeah, so they must have just decided it was a really poor shot.
ESPN has it, so we'll maybe.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, that's really weird. He only shoots 66% from the free throw line, but he shoots 56% from the floor. So naturally, he'll probably, I don't know, go
6 for 8 from 3.
Yeah, 6 for 8, 7 for 9 from 3, maybe. Like that kid from Army last year.
Oh my gosh, that was the
who
worst.
Had attempted 1 3 in his career and he made 6 against IU or something.
I was on the call for that game, but the utter shock.
Yeah.
I sound like an idiot. Maybe he shot his first one. Like, it's not part of his game. 6 threes later, during the second half, he just took the lead against Indiana.
Like, holy cow. Yeah, maybe we should have known something was off last year when Florida Gulf Coast took IU down to the wire.
Yeah.
I remember thinking Gabe Cupps. Yeah, Gabe Cupps is going to be the guy. Gabe Cupps was not the guy.
No.
Not the guy. But he plays the game the right way. Hard worker. Knows for the basketball. Scrappy. Gym rat. That sort of thing. Another player to watch. Well, there aren't that many, actually, for Winthrop. I'm sorry.
They're very, like,
They're just there.
It's a very system offense.
Yeah.
They don't really have a lot of stars, so Mark Prosser, I'm sure, took something out of his dad's book. They run a pretty good offense. I mean, it flows pretty well. They haven't had a lot of points where, Indiana's had some points where they just go have such long droughts of not scoring. That's not really what Winthrop does. I mean, they have guys who can score. It's just nobody. It's not a lot of ISO ball or anything of that nature. It's not a lot of hero ball from individual players.
So it'll be something to watch
Yeah.
for Indiana defensively today. I will say, looking at another guy to watch, Nick Johnson, 6'4" guard, a guy who started the season on the bench for about the first 5 or 6 games and then got his first start against Louisville, and well, now he's on a streak of 5 consecutive games in double figures. So he's kind of got a hot hand going for them, a career-high 22 against Mercer. 2 20-point games this season, one of which was not against Louisville. He only scored 3 in that game. Averett University, never heard of it, but he scored 20 points against them. Or is that even a D1 school? No, I don't think so. And that's the thing. Winthrop hasn't played a lot of tough opponents. When they have played high major opponents, they haven't lost. They haven't kept it close. So again, that's what I would expect today against Winthrop for Indiana. It'll be interesting to see how that game goes. It's Indiana's final non-conference game of the season. Weird things happen when Indiana plays Rutgers, and that's what's going to happen next. So I'm interested to see what happens there as well. But yeah, it should be a fun one at Assembly Hall. 4:00 tip today. The Indiana women's team blew out Wisconsin yesterday to open Big Ten play. We'll talk more about Terry Morin's team because, boy, oh boy, they are hooping. We'll talk more after this about Indiana women's basketball. You're listening to IU Sports Sunday. Hour 2 here on IU Sports Sunday. He's Ben Haller. I'm Nick Rotacap. And Ben, you know that meme of the 2 guys sitting on the bus and one's looking really sad, leaning his head up against the window while the other one's smiling, looking out the window?
Of course.
I feel like that's Indiana men's basketball versus Indiana women's basketball. And Indiana women's basketball is the guy looking out the window, like smiling, like happy, optimistic. Because, yes, they had a slow start, and that's been well documented. But, man, they were hooping yesterday at Assembly Hall. I called the Oakland game last week. You could kind of see in that one that they were starting to really hit their stride. And they picked up right where they left off yesterday against Wisconsin, 83-52 in that one. I think that works. Lily Meister led the way. I was thinking it would be tough for her, taking on the starting role after the departure of Mackenzie Holmes. But it wasn't difficult for her yesterday. 20 points in just 22 minutes for Lily Meister to go along with 3 rebounds and a block as well. That's a good start. Yeah, that'll work.
A lot of things going well for that team. I've just liked the way they've bounced back after a really rough start. I mean, that's the difference between the men's side and the women's side. If you want to go back and compare, is like the men's team hasn't had a detrimental bad loss like the women's team has, but the women's team has just done so much of a better job bouncing back and being able to keep that in the rear view and move forward. Just naturally on the women's side, margin of victory tends to be a little bit higher, but still a Wisconsin team that's top 100 in the net. It's not like they're the worst team in the Big Ten by any means. So very impressed with that. They have an interesting stretch coming up. They get both UCLA and USC, if I'm not mistaken, sometime soon.
Yeah. It's going to be really tough for them in the month of January.
Yeah.
Because you host UCLA. UCLA right now, I believe, is still the number 1 team in the country. That's coming up on Saturday here in Bloomington on Fox, noon. Then
Big
you go
noon
to
kickoff.
Big noon kickoff, except it's basketball. And Penn State fans can't complain about that. They hate Big Noon. They hate it. So do Ohio State fans. Does anyone actually like Big Noon?
No.
It
puts the best game of the week on at noon. No one wants that.
It should be in prime time.
Yes.
Always. Anyway, Indiana hosts UCLA next Saturday at noon. And then you play Northwestern on the road in Evanston. And then you go to Iowa, January 12th, which is the day after the men go to Iowa, which is weird. So it's like an IU weekend.
Double feature.
in Iowa City. Yeah. And then USC comes to town on the 19th. You host Illinois. That's weird because it's like that same turnaround that Indiana had when they hosted Iowa last year. They played Illinois on a Monday and lost, and then played Iowa that Thursday. That was an interesting stretch because Indiana lost that game at Illinois, and then they bounced back against Iowa. They host USC on the 19th. So you play two of the top 10 teams in the country, and in all likelihood, three ranked teams, in a span of about 2.5 weeks. I feel pretty confident for Indiana going into that stretch with the way they've been playing lately. I feel like you mentioned they had a slow start, very slow start, bad losses to Harvard and Butler. But really, they've done a good job of putting that in the rear view, and it does seem like they've really started to figure things out.
Yeah, they're also kind of an easier brand of basketball to figure out, I think, too. For them, the biggest issue was, all right, you lose Mackenzie Holmes and Sarah Sky. You're two of the best players, at least had two of the best seasons in program history. So many role players came back, and you just lose your two stars, and the biggest thing is trying to find out who's going to be that star. There are ways to work around it. There are ways to get, 3 or 4 different players equal shots. Those be your top shooters, and still for that to work. And I think that they're finally starting to figure out how to play that way, how to play a very balanced offense. Meister is playing the best basketball of her career, and that is huge. But I think that just the fact that, Sydney Parrish can have a rough game one game and then they'll still be fine, or Chloe Moore McNeil can shoot poor from the field and they'll still be fine. That's what I like about this team a lot. That's what I think Indiana was trying to build. They just haven't had as many players step up, and the other part of that is, a lot of it, the being a star player is about creating your own shots. The women's team has a decent amount of players that could do that. The men's team doesn't, right now at least.
You think about players like Shea Chesky, Sydney Parrish, Yarden Garzone, Chloe Moore McNeil. All of them fit the bill. Mm-hmm. And we mentioned Lily Meister, the game that she had yesterday, 20 points in 22 minutes. Yarden Garzone did a little bit of everything. 13 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 blocks.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that'll work. She did leave the game late with, I believe it was an ankle injury. Okay. And Terry Morin said after the game she didn't have any updates. That is kind of the one thing. The injury bug has been an unfortunate constant for Indiana women's basketball over these last few years. Strange. You think back a couple years ago, Grace Berger, Mackenzie Holmes, both injured late in that season. Last year it was Holmes and Sydney Parrish. Both got dinged up in the final month and a half. This year, Parrish has missed some time. She finally got back on the floor last weekend. Didn't really look like she missed a beat. Parrish had 13 yesterday. Made 3 3-point field goals on 4 attempts. But Garzone, an ankle injury, I believe it was. I would hope that she'd be good to go against UCLA. Because if not, it's a big loss. I think that's an understatement. But Indiana's got some time off between now and then. You've got 6 days to get ready for that game. So you'd like to see Garzone back for that one. But, yeah, the depth is sort of, I think, coming into a zone for Indiana women's basketball right now. Chloe Moore McNeil, 7 points, 7 assists as she marches towards, is it 1,000 career assists? Is it 500? It was some milestone that she was getting closer to. And Indiana as a team, very good from the field yesterday. 50% from 3, 71% from the free throw line, which for their standards is low. That was something that kind of struck them in the Oakland game as well. But all in all, a very complete game for them. A 31-point win over a Big Ten opponent. Yeah, you'll take that any day of the week. So Indiana women's basketball now sitting at 10-3 overall. They've won 6 in a row, 2-0 in Big Ten play. Big test coming up, but it's definitely encouraging for them moving forward. A lot of these games are at home, too. Yeah. Which is big.
Well, I think, too, it just goes back to how big can Yarden Garzone come back after that injury? You're playing these really good teams And when you don't have a star player that we've talked about, you kind of need everybody to do a part and play their role to almost perfection against these really good teams. And it's just really tough to do when you don't have one of those top 4 players out there like Arizona is. So that's going to be a big thing for me moving forward, is just the health of this team. It seems like ever since you and I got on campus, somebody big and somebody important has been hurt for this team going back all the way 2 years ago. But I just, again, I like the way they progressed. I like the way they've gotten better. It's only been 2 months of a season, but as the season's gone on, the point that they're at now, and then you look back at this team after the Butler game, they had back-to-back losses to Harvard and Butler, and this team looked like they were dead in the water. And Terry Morin's done a great job revitalizing them.
And just nothing has come out yet about Yarden Garzon. All that they have, all that the team had after the game was that, she was in the training room doing some rehab. She had ice on her ankle. It was after a loose ball. She was attempting to dive on it. Wisconsin player attempting to dive on it as well. Garzon got her legs taken out from under her. She was able to walk off the floor under her own power, which is good. Mm-hmm. But I talked about injuries. I forgot to mention Lene Beaumont out for the season.
Yeah.
Sydney Fenn, freshman, yes, but she's also out for the season. It is kind of a concerning trend for Indiana women's basketball. But you trust Coach Morin, you trust Terry Morin. I mean, she's basically built this program from the ground up over the last 10 years, and she's going to get it figured out. She'll get it figured out. Can Mike Woodson get it figured out on the men's side? I don't know. But we will talk more about that after this short break. You're listening to IU Sports Sunday on WGCL. Back here on IU Sports Sunday, Big Ten men's basketball season, both basketball seasons, I should say, are in full swing. He's Ben Howler. I'm Nick Rodecap. We are taking a look around the Big Ten. At the top of the standings, UCLA, which I didn't have on my bingo card, but Mick Cronin's squad, 11-2. Big win over Gonzaga yesterday. One of the marquee matchups coming out of the holiday break. At the top, you've also got Michigan State and Michigan. So 2 old-school Big Ten teams sandwiched between 2 Pac-12 teams now, with Oregon in 4th place at 11-1 overall and 1-1 in league play. Indiana, down there a little bit. They're 9-3, 1-1 in Big Ten play. Of course, it kicks off in earnest on Saturday when the Hoosiers host the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Both of those teams have been kind of underwhelming, Indiana and Rutgers. Rutgers has a ton of talent. You think about guys like Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, but they just haven't really put it together yet.
No, I mean, but you always know that the Rutgers is a team that can at any point just turn it on. And because they have some of the most talent, especially in the freshman class, out of any team in the country, they're going to have those games. And again, we talked about it earlier, some of the things to avoid, being the team that they have those games against is being able to just play defense early. It is so crucial. Before the first media timeout, if you can make a team go cold, all right, immediately right away, they're not shooting well, nothing's falling for them. They're at Assembly Hall. They have 17,000 against them. That's the easiest way and quickest way to really just beat down a team. But it has to happen early. You cannot let a team like Rutgers get hot.
And Rutgers, so far this season, they had that weird loss against Kennesaw State, if you remember back. That was around Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Very strange. And then I remember listening to one of these games. I was driving back from Purdue, maybe. It was Rutgers-Notre Dame in Las Vegas. That game was ridiculous. That game went in overtime. It was 85-84 Rutgers. And then Rutgers also, they took Alabama down to the wire. And then they took Texas A&M down to the wire. But some weird losses for them. They lost to Princeton just recently, actually.
Yeah.
That was strange.
2 quad 3 losses isn't good. I mean, they went to Kennesaw State, which I thought was really interesting. A lot of teams are doing that now, and it just doesn't seem to be working for any team. I don't really know what you gain out of that. But then they lose at home to Princeton, who's a solid team. They're for an Ivy League team, they're 116 of the net, but they've just cannot put the pieces together. They have some good wins, beating Penn State at home. Penn State's shown they're a pretty good team this year. And then obviously that Notre Dame game that you said was pretty crazy. Notre Dame's okay, but it's certainly better than they were last year. Maybe the most promising thing is just how they've kept a couple of these games close. Ohio State wasn't good. That was probably, other than Kennesaw State, Princeton, the worst game they've played this year. But the loss to Alabama by 5 was a top 10 team in the country, and the Texas A&M only by 4. So they're competitive against some of these good teams. But no, they have not been the Rutgers that I think people were expecting this year by any means.
They've been underwhelming. I think they're kind of in the same boat as Indiana, where if they want to have an at-large chance at the NCAA tournament, you're going to have to go on a pretty solid run in Big Ten play, which is possible, but it's difficult. The Big Ten, especially now, UCLA and Oregon near the top, it's going to be a rock fight. It's going to be tough. Very, very tough to win the Big Ten, to even, make a run in the Big Ten tournament now. What is it, 15 teams?
15 out of 18.
Which is weird.
Yeah.
Very weird. I get it. You want to give one a first-round bye, I guess, but weird. I don't know. Strange. Odd. Peculiar. Other words that you can use to describe some oddities. Also near the top, Maryland and Nebraska. Indiana, it's tough. Because for 33 minutes against Nebraska, Indiana played okay. They played pretty well, actually. It was close at halftime. I remember saying on the broadcast, this game feels like it might go to overtime.
Yeah.
Well, then what happened? Didn't go to overtime.
It did not go to overtime.
Indiana, you go 7 minutes without making a field goal. Who could predict that sort of thing is going to happen with the way that game was going? Nobody could have. But it's just unpredictable, volatile, the nature of Indiana men's basketball now, which is, I don't know if that's just the reality. And past performance is no indicator of future results, but that's just kind of how it's gone for Indiana right now. So you think about tough teams, Penn State coming up for Indiana. They go to the Palestra. That's not on Penn State's campus. It's in Philly. That feels like your textbook road trap game, right? I wouldn't say trap game, but one where you'd want to circle it and make sure you don't come out flat.
Yeah, I wouldn't say trap game because they're not going to be favored in it.
Yeah.
Going all the way out there, and Penn State's been a really good team this year. It's just overall is going to be a tough matchup for Indiana. Penn State has surprised a lot of people. I think Mike Rhodes has done an excellent job with them. But it is a weird game. I'm interested to see what the crowd is like. Philly, it's just shown that Indiana's, pretty much every big city, Indiana's got a decent alumni fan base. Penn State, though, obviously in the state of Pennsylvania, even though if it is just Philly, there still are a lot of Penn State fans. But it's basketball. So I'm interested to see what that turnout's like. Palestra's one of the historic buildings in college basketball. I know all the players are excited to play there. I know people who are going and excited about that. But, that's another game. You're right. You cannot come out flat. Some of these Big Ten teams are just so good defensively that once you do, they suffocate you. And Penn State can do that.
You remember last year when Indiana visited Penn State? That was at the Bryce Jordan Center. That was a game where Indiana, everything kind of fell. All their flaws came to the forefront in one game.
Yeah.
They couldn't shoot, they couldn't defend, and they couldn't make free throws. It just all three phases that Indiana struggled in last year. Penn State just seems to have Indiana's number under Mike Woodson. That's kind of been a theme. I don't know if Indiana's beaten Penn State on the road under Mike Woodson. I don't think they have. Very strange. Very strange. But weird things happen in the Big Ten. So a tough stretch for Indiana coming out of New Year's because we talked about Rutgers, we talked about Penn State, and then USC comes to town. But really, Indiana's going to have to take advantage, as they've done this season, they're going to have to take advantage of winning these home games. 8-0 at home. They've played the bulk of their games at home here in the latter part of 2024. But then you look at 2025. Just in January, we mentioned you go to the Palestra, that's in Philadelphia. Then you go to Iowa City. Then you go to Columbus. Then you go to Evanston. Then you go to Purdue. 5 road games, Big Ten road games in a month. Purdue, not as good as they were last year, not even close. No Zach Edey, no Mason Gillis. But I don't know. Going to West Lafayette, there's no Jalen Hood-Schifino coming to score 35 points this time. Zach Edey, not there either. But I feel like that Purdue game, it's always big, obviously. Mackey, though, such a tough place to play.
Especially against Indiana.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still going to be a classic Indiana-Purdue game. I could see a split this year just with Indiana still having the talent to get it done and Purdue not being quite as unbeatable. I like Indiana's chances at home, but I don't really see them picking up an upset win on the road again.
Yeah. It's weird because Purdue, they beat Alabama, right? And that was a great win for them.
Yeah.
And that was in Mackey. But it seems like they've really, really struggled away from Mackey, not even just on the road, like neutral site games, because they play Texas A&M in Indianapolis, which, basically a home game for them. It goes in the books as a neutral site game, but that's an Indy. They played A&M, they lost. They went to Marquette, they got blown out. That game was not close either. It just seems like, Purdue, they don't really have, I don't want to say they don't have an identity, but they've been left with more questions than answers in their first year without Zach Edey.
Yeah, they've played a tough schedule, too, I think is the big part of that. They're 3-4 in Quad 1. They've already played 7 Quad 1 games. They have 9 left. So they're going to end the season with 16 of their 31 games coming in the Quad 1 section. I mean, that is just a really tough ask. They got blown out by Auburn, too, which I don't know how much you can blame them at this point. I think it's safe to say
Auburn's one of the best.
Probably the best. In my opinion, Auburn's the best team in the country.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of with Purdue this year. I mean, they don't have a bad loss, but some of their big wins. I mean, Ole Miss was a solid win. I think there was a neutral site game, I want to say, but
that win might, though, for Purdue, lose some of its shine because Ole Miss got blown out by Memphis yesterday.
Yeah,
Memphis is weird.
College basketball's weird. We keep saying
team.
this about so many teams. It is college basketball at its finest.
There's a lot of weird.
Weird. And none of the weird really gets figured out until late February, early March. And then the weird really ramps up.
Then it gets sicko level weird.
Yeah.
Speaking of sicko, shout out to the Pop-Tart Bowl.
That was awesome.
Shout out to the Pop-Tart Bowl. Whoever was behind the mascot suits, they aren't getting paid enough.
Did you see the videos? They did like a highlight on them.
Oh,
they're
incredible.
Like warming up for it. There's 4 of them.
Weren't they? They were running NFL combine drills at one point.
One of them was. I think it was
Berry. Wild Berry?
Wild Berry?
Yeah. Shout out Wild Berry. I'm sure that, that Pop-Tart's going to be getting some calls here in the next coming days. Putting on that kind of performance on that big of a stage. Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. That's why I guess that's one of the cool things to come out of modern college football. There's a lot of meh, there's a lot of bad, but that's one of the good things.
Yeah.
Speaking of good things, Ashton Genty has a chance to really prove people wrong, prove Heisman voters wrong, not the greater American populace, but Heisman voters wrong when Boise State takes on Penn State. Tom Allen defense. Big stage. I don't know. Indiana fans have seen that movie a few times. And it didn't go well.
No.
Did not go well. Shout out to Tennessee for an onside kick in the 2020 Gator Bowl. 2019, I guess. Ugh. That's in the past. Let's leave it in the past. You're listening to IU Sports Sunday on WGCL. Back here on IU Sports Sunday, he's Ben Howler. I'm Nick Rotacap. We were thinking about this. How do I phrase this? The trends in Indiana football versus Indiana men's basketball, and the fact that a 1-year turnaround is possible now. Ben, I want to pose the question to you. This is an apples to green beans comparison.
My favorite kind of comparison.
There is no scientific method to this at all.
Okay.
Would Curt Cignetti's coaching philosophy work with Indiana men's basketball? This is just totally out of left field. I just want to know. I don't know. I don't know if it would.
Like, it depends what you mean by philosophy. Just like, are you talking about the way he like runs his program in terms of like he is very, runs it like a military base. Like he's a military general more than Tom Allen was, and I think more than Mike Woodson is. And that scenario, I actually do. I think if you look at some of the more successful coaches around college basketball right now, maybe the most successful coach, you could say he feels like verbally abuses his players. And Dan Hurley over in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And that's working for him. I do think overall, like I know like all these boomers like to talk about how soft that the college game is going. And
all the old
overall,
heads.
the way that those kinds of things are starting to get phased out a little bit, but they're not totally gone. I mean, Dan Hurley's no Bob Knight per se, but that still is more Curt Cignetti than it feels like it is Mike Woodson, just in terms of how tough he is on the players, how practices run. I mean, did you see that video that came out? It was a feature on a UConn practice, and I cried for some of the players, I think, just the way Hurley was talking to them and what he was putting them through, and the way Hurley would scream at the managers the same way he would scream at the players, the same way he would scream at his assistant coaches. But, I mean, he runs a very, very tight and, as close to perfect practice and program as possible. They've struggled this year, but they've also had some injury issues, and they're playing some pretty good basketball now.
Yeah, it's a good point about Dan Hurley, because I just remember him crashing out. Was it in Maui?
Maui. He had a tough time in Maui. He did go too far in Maui, I will say.
Yeah.
They lost by, I forget how many it was. I think they were up 4, and he got a technical foul with less than a minute left.
Yeah, which led to a meltdown.
Yeah.
And UConn lost. It was like they lost to, I know they lost to Colorado. They lost some bad games. They lost some bad games in Maui. They fell from, what was it, like 7th or 8th in the AP poll all the way to 25th.
Yeah, it was second. It was second to 25, I think.
Yeah.
But that's going to bother me. Who they lose to? Colorado was one of them.
Dayton was one, I think.
Dayton, and then Memphis was the first one.
Yeah.
Memphis was the crash out. They lost 99-97.
That's right. Okay. So, yeah, Dan Hurley went a little bit too far in Maui. But I'm trying to compare him to Curt Cignetti. Again, this is apples to green beans. This is very different things.
I will say here's what I do really like about Cignetti, and I've seen it in some coaches that I kind of like this too. Cignetti is very foot on the gas, foot on their throat when they're winning. And if you mess up while you're winning, he's going to let you know, and he will scream at you. If you're losing, though, he's more of a calming presence. It's kind of he has 18 favorite sayings, one of them being never too high, never too low. I like that. Never letting yourself get too excited when you're playing well, and never acting like it's the end of the world when you're losing. That's another philosophy that I don't think a lot of college coaches have that I think could work in the basketball world.
Yeah. It's a good point. I just wish, with college football, sample size is the enemy. There's not enough of it. Mm-hmm. And with Indiana, I just 2025 I think is going to be a bigger tell for how Indiana handles like adversity. I feel like they're going to face a lot of it next year. You got 3 road games that you could reasonably be expected to lose. No self-imposed limitations. I know. But let's face it, Oregon, Iowa, Penn State. 2 of those, I think it's Iowa and Oregon in back-to-back games, not back-to-back weeks because there's a bye week. But Iowa and Oregon back-to-back as far as games are concerned. Tough. So I'd like to see how Indiana handles that. I know they didn't handle Ohio State well. I'm on record saying that they did not handle that well. I'm on record. I didn't say they didn't handle Notre Dame well because that game was weird. Because Notre Dame just, they leaned on their talent. Indiana didn't have enough talent, and then Indiana was coaching scared, and they were playing scared. But back to the topic of this conversation, would Kurt Signetti's philosophy work for Indiana men's basketball? I feel like Dan Hurley is close enough of an example to where it probably would.
Yeah.
Because, you mentioned and Signetti has talked about this, how if Indiana's winning by, say, 2 touchdowns at halftime, he's going to be on them in the locker room. Because, you can feel the letdown coming. But, he talks about how it went at James Madison where, okay, yeah, we're losing by 17 in the third quarter. It's like, hey, okay, well, pressure's off, play loose, start having fun. Easier said than done. But when you're freaking out and you're down big, things tend to spiral.
It's true.
Which happens a lot with Indiana men's basketball. The game that comes to mind for me, which kind of embodied that, was Nebraska in the Big Ten tournament last year. I was on a plane when that game was being played. I was coming back from New York. Shout out to the Ernie Pyle Scholars cohort in the media school. I was coming back from New York, and I remember telling one of my friends, I was like, hey, don't tell me the score. Nobody said anything, but then they said Mike Woodson got thrown out. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure enough,
Probably
they lost by 35 or whatever it was. That's what I mean. When the wheels fall off, it's really bad. I feel like Kurt Signetti's mindset of not getting thrown out of a game with your season on the line, and being on them when things are going well, I feel like that might work. I don't know. It's food for thought. It's a very, very odd comparison, I know, but just wanted to float that by you. We'll float into this commercial break. You're listening to IU Sports Sunday. Back here on IU Sports Sunday, he's Ben Howler. I'm Nick Rotacap. We're with you. And I can't believe it, but wow, 2024 is basically over. Weird, man. Weird. How many times have I said? I've said weird a lot today.
It's been a weird day. It is just kind of all coming to a year in review type thing for Indiana sports.
Whew.
And
what a year.
If you just take a look at the calendar year, so the last half of the year for Indiana men's basketball last season and the first half this season, things have not gone well. Indiana women's basketball's had its ups and downs. Indiana football, it's all ups.
It's striking every single year, the final Saturday, and not even the final Saturday, but mid-August rolls around. And it's oh, yep, football season's coming up. And then it's here. And then you blink, and it's over.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to me. How it sounds like it's an existential crisis, but football season is so fast, especially college football. I mean, you're only guaranteed 12 games. You play 13, you make a bowl game, you make the playoff, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And I feel like, since we both cover the team, it's kind of tough to really appreciate it from an outsider's perspective, just like a casual fan, spectator, whatever. But wow, this calendar year for Indiana football, I feel like there's going to be a documentary made about it one day. If it's not,
there probably will be.
Yeah,
it's probably coming soon, honestly.
Yeah, because just again, I've said it throughout the year. This time last year, Indiana football was about as low as you can get. 3-24 over the last 3 years in conference games. 9-20. No, bad. I'm just gonna say bad overall. And at this time, again, they were picked to finish 17th in the Big Ten. They finished tied for second. And they were, I feel like the Big Ten should change the way the tiebreakers work. Because right now, it's the combined winning percentage of your conference opponents. You can't control that. So I think the Big Ten should change it. It should, be margin of victory.
But margin of victory is so hard because...
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't control that, but you can't control the schedule in general. It's just how it's just how college football works. It's how it's going to work with the big conferences.
It's how it works now. Yeah. When you get rid of divisions and you have 18-team super conferences, you're right. That's just what's going to happen. I wish it didn't have to happen. I wish it's not a perfect world. Never going to be a perfect world. That doesn't mean we can't try, though. I feel like eventually, kind of like you're seeing we had the great unbundling. It's going to be the great rebundling. You're going to have cable, but it's just going to be a streaming model. Kind of like how we're coming full circle with that. I feel like at some point in the not-so-distant future, you might have divisions come back to conferences, and you might have conferences split again. Because at least for football, 18 teams in a conference just doesn't work. People complain about Indiana having an unbalanced schedule. It's going to be other teams that have it next year.
Yeah.
It's not just, this isn't going to be unique to IU. It's going to happen to every team. Some years you're going to have like a Purdue schedule where you play Oregon, you play Penn State, you play, who else did they play? They played Ohio State. Some years you're going to play the Nebraskas and the Washingtons and the UCLAs of the football world. And that's just how it's going to be. I don't have a fix for it, but that's just the reality.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a fix. It's kind of what pro leagues are like. I mean, it's just a rotation of teams that you're playing, and the divisions. It just, I don't think if you're an Indiana fan, you want the divisions back at all.
No, thank you. No,
you don't want the divisions back.
No,
obviously
I'm thinking. No, you add the 4 West Coast schools, Indiana would still be in the East.
Yeah.
Ugh, no.
But you'd have. I lost my train of thought. You'd have the obviously the unbalance between the two divisions, and then you also the championship, one coming from each side. I mean, divisions are stunk for a lot of conferences, but it was especially bad for the Big Ten.
It was horrible.
It was bad for the Big Ten.
Because every year besides 2013, was it 15? It was sometime early on after the Big Ten added divisions. Basically, the East won it every single year.
Yeah,
which is why
by a lot.
It wasn't even close most of the time. You think about it, used to just be whoever won the Ohio State-Michigan game was winning the Big Ten.
Yeah,
and getting the playoff bid, and that's just how it was. Because the Big Ten West, I mean, it would usually either be Wisconsin, Purdue,
Iowa,
or Iowa.
Purdue like once, yeah.
That's the thing. That's crazy about Purdue. That's the thing. 2022, they were playing for the Big Ten title. 2 years later, they're the worst team in the conference.
Jeff Brom?
Yeah. Just crazy how quickly things can change on both sides in college football.
Mm-hmm.
Good and bad. And the difference in vibes, very technical term, very analytic, and very in-depth, yes. The vibe shift between Bloomington and West Lafayette in football this year. As someone who experienced both, wow. Could not have been more different.
Yeah.
I would say at least Purdue knows how to party, but they don't. They don't know how to do much up there besides homework and stupid dances at Mackey Arena.
And basketball.
Yep. Yeah, they do know how to do basketball with Indiana-born players. What a concept. I wonder if any other historically significant basketball program has ever had success in the past with players from their home state. No. Impossible. Can't be done. It's just crazy. The difference between Mike Woodson and Bob Knight. I'm comparing apples to oranges a little bit. But Mike Woodson played under Bob Knight, and yet he saw what made him so successful. Like that, he just doesn't recruit the state of Indiana, or when he does, he doesn't win the recruiting battles.
Well, he does, yeah.
Doesn't win it.
You look at style of play, and I just don't see why you would want to play for Mike Woodson.
That's a good point. Liam McNeely saw that.
Yeah.
And he made the right move. And all those players, it was him, Caleb Banks, and CJ Gunn, who all came out about the same time and indirectly shaded Mike Woodson. Liam McNeely was like, yeah, you're not just playing for yourself here at UConn. You're playing for those around you. CJ Gunn, I think he tweeted about Caleb Banks because Caleb Banks is having a really good year at Tulane. Mm-hmm. And CJ Gunn's like, you took the chains off. He can play your game now.
Yeah.
Tamar Bates at Mizzou. They had a thrilling game against Illinois last week. Mizzou lost that game, but that game was crazy. That's what college basketball should be.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us here on IU Sports Sunday this week. He's Ben Haller. I'm Nick Rotacap. We thank you for joining us. Looking ahead, the Colts play the Giants in something akin to NFL football. That's coming up at 1 p.m. Matt Taylor, Rick Venturi will have you covered. Thank you for listening to IU Sports Sunday.